Hello and welcome to another episode. Kimberly Denise here. And I just want to welcome you for tuning in once again and thank you and say how much I appreciate you for coming back and listening to another episode here on the podcast. So today I'm going to be talking about one of my favorite topics, and that is abundance. What is abundance? What does it mean? How do we tap into it? And most importantly, as I'm sure you're probably wondering because you're here, how do you experience more of it in your life? So, by the end of this episode, I encourage you to stick all the way to the end because I'm going to give you three very specific and very easy and simple steps. Three things that you can apply to your life starting today as you exit away back into your life from this podcast. So, stick to the end. So, abundance, what is it, right? A lot of us, when we hear the word abundance, we might think a bunch of money or a bunch of material items and possessions, or just a bunch of, you might think of like rich people and luxurious houses and luxury cars, or just a lot of material things, right? And what I quickly learned in studying the universal principles is that abundance isn't the having of something as much as it is the being of something. And abundance isn't, Wayne Dyer, if you're familiar with who he is, he has an amazing quote, and he says something like, abundance isn't something that we acquire, it's something that we tune into. And when I heard him say that, it just totally shifted my perspective on what abundance truly is. Because so often we think that, oh, abundance is having the great car, right? And the great house, and having a bunch of piles of money all around us, and just having all of these extravagant, lavish things. But it really isn't. Material items and an abundance of material things, and having your dream house, your dream car, your dream material things, there's nothing wrong with that, right? But you'll never get to that place without first tapping into what abundance really is. So, what I learned, what I've discovered in my personal experience, is that abundance is a mindset. Abundance is an attitude, and abundance is a frequency. So, if you're not familiar with some of the foundational principles of universal law, everything is energy. Your energy, I'm energy, everything we see around us is made up of energy. The table in front of me right now is made up of energy. And we're not going to go into explaining that on this episode because that's an episode in and of itself, right? But if you can just take the principle and understand that everything is energy, then tapping into abundance is an energy as well. So abundance itself is an energy. And how I explain it to my students and how I explain it to friends and family members and clients is we really are, our body is a biological electromagnetic technology. And we have the ability to tune ourselves in and out of certain frequencies, just like a radio. So if you start viewing your brain as a radio and understand that there's different channels, you look at how a radio works, right? You have you know, a old school radio. For those of you who were maybe born in the 80s or 90s, you might know what a radio is. Maybe you used one and maybe you still use one, but it's a device, right, that you plug in, and it usually has an antenna. And you turn it on, and there's a certain number of channels that you're able to tune into based on that antenna that's going out. What is the antenna doing? The antenna is acting as a receiver going out into the universe, right? And picking up on the different frequencies that are being broadcasted by each individual radio station, no matter where they're at. They might be in New York, they might be in California, they might be in Texas, they might be in Florida. No matter where they're at, they're broadcasting that signal out, and the radios are a technology that can receive that broadcast. So we are made in a similar way, where our brain, our mind, we have a mechanism within us that does both. Actually, it does broadcasting and it does receiving. So if abundance is a frequency, abundance is like a channel that you can tune into as if you were a radio, we have to ask ourselves, how is it that I can operate in and within this body of mine, this mind of mine, this consciousness of mine, of me, of who I am, you, your name, right? You, bigger than that, you, the infinite cosmic being. How can I operate right now in my everyday life to start tuning into more abundance? Because here's what I want to let you know. If you're here tuned into this episode, I want you to know, no matter what you are going through right now, it might seem, if you're somebody who's dealing with some kind of financial problem, if you're dealing with a problem that there's some kind of lack or limitation in your life, whether that's a lack of love, a lack of health and wellness, a lack of money, a lack of whatever it might be. We're all facing our little challenges of big or little challenges of limitation in some way, shape, or form that we're always trying to get through and over and under and past, right? But no matter what, I want to let you know that abundance is something that you have access to no matter what circumstance you are in. And that's the first step, is accepting that abundance is all around us. Abundance is literally something we can tap into at any moment. And once we accept that, then we make ourselves available to tune into that. So if we're created like a radio, that means that we can tune in. But how do we tune in? So there's different mechanisms of our mind. There's different mechanisms that make up us and who we are, right? One of those is our thoughts. The thoughts that we have every single day throughout our day and all day long, we have something crazy like 70,000 thoughts a day, right? And right now I encourage you to ask yourself and be very honest and very transparent with yourself, right? We can't lie to ourselves, right? We can't, but we know when we're lying to ourselves. But be honest. Out of those 70,000 thoughts a day that you have, that scientists have proven that human beings on average have that many, how many of those thoughts are based around abundance and based around prosperity or well-being or happiness or joy or whatever it is that you feel like you might be limited in right now, whatever it is that you feel like you might be lacking? How many thoughts are based consciously on abundance in your life? When I asked myself that question, when I was dealing with an issue of not experiencing abundance in my life, and when I was first studying this and discovering it and learning to apply it to my own life, I asked myself that and I said, you know what? Not very many. I realized that I was focusing on all the wrong things. I was focusing on, and most of us do, right? Because it's so easy to do. We get caught up in whatever's happening in our life. If we have bills piling up, we have debt, we have debt collectors calling us all day long, or we might have whatever it is that we're going through. Speaking of financial limitation and a lack of financial abundance, we can so easily just get wrapped up in the spiral of paying so much attention and so much of our consciousness and our awareness on what we don't have, what is not there, the money that's not there. We get scared to log into the bank account, or we log into the bank account, and what are we focused on? We're focused on the balance not being where we want it to be, right? Or we are focused on the bills that we're not able to pay, or we focus on the debt that we don't have the money to pay, and we just, our focus and our attention goes on what we don't have instead of what we do have. So I noticed that about myself. I realized, I was like, oh my gosh, you know what? Here I am. I want to create this situation in my life where I have more abundance and I have more prosperity, and I don't feel like money's ruling me, and I want to be the one who's ruling money, but yet I'm over here just consumed and thinking about everything that I actually don't want. And that's what most of us, if we're honest with ourselves, if we haven't yet tapped into abundance, we realize, when we come to that realization of, oh wow, that is what I usually think about. I remember being kept up late at night by my money problems, and keep being kept up late at night thinking about debt and thinking about, how am I going to do this, and how am I going to pay that, and how are we going to afford that, and how am I ever going to go here, and how am I going to do this? And it was just constantly a question, and just question after question after question after question. And our minds, the way that they work, there's this principle called horizontal thinking, where we have a thought in our mind, and the way that our mind and our subconscious is wired, that immediately after having that one thought, dozens and hundreds of similar thoughts will come flooding in right after that one thought, if we're not conscious about what we're thinking about. So think about it. Think about the thoughts that you're thinking about, right? If we have one thought of, oh man, I don't have the money for that, and then all of a sudden you have, oh, and you need to pay this, oh, and you need to do that, and oh, there's no money for this, and oh, how are you going to do that, and oh, you were supposed to go here, and then all of these thoughts that are parallel, that are the same type of thought, a thought on lack, a focus on not having, right, starts to flood in, right? So the first step is understanding that our thoughts make us receptive. Our thoughts are also broadcasted. So not only do our thoughts put us in a place of what frequency we're tuned into, or the frequency that we tune into, whether or not we're tuning into the station of abundance or not, highly depends on what we're thinking and what we're choosing to think. And the most powerful thing that you can realize today on this podcast is that you are not your thoughts. You are not your thoughts. You're experiencing thoughts. Some thoughts are personally yours, some are not. Some have been given to you. Some you might even be picking up on, a lot of people are empaths, right? And you might be picking up on thoughts from people somewhere else, right? But when you realize that you're the thinker and you're the consciousness behind the thoughts, and if you can separate yourself and become the observer of the thinking instead of just being wrapped up in the thoughts and being defined by what you're thinking all the time, that's going to make a huge difference in your life. So tapping into abundance and getting on the frequency of abundance so that you can experience more of it in your life. Number one, the thoughts, the things that you're thinking about needs to be shifted over to abundance. Now, how can we, if we are in a place where we feel like we're lacking so much and we're needing so much and we just don't have this and we don't have that and we don't have this, it takes a mental discipline, right? And it takes a true commitment. It takes that decision of, you know what? I am done and I am tired of living the same day after day after day after day. I'm tired of living the same month where my bills are late. I'm tired of living the same reality where, I'm having to borrow money here and borrow money there, and I have debt over here, and my credit isn't improving. And you have to become so done and tired with that reality and take 100% responsibility for it, right? And not blame your spouse, not blame the government, not blame the economy, not blame your job, not blame your business or your clients or your customers or any website or just anything at all. Though, even though those things might play a part in the picture of why you think that you are in the way that you are, if you just take 100% responsibility and say, no, I'm done with this and I'm going to change it, I promise you, you will be led on the path to actually change it when that actual decision is made within yourself. So the first decision is I have to start thinking something different. Even if things look like they're terrible and they're bad, I have to start searching for what is going right. Right? Shifting your attention. One of my mentors always says, you are where your attention is. You're going to create whatever your attention is on. So being aware of that and asking yourself, where's my attention moment to moment? Is it on the debt or is it over here admiring something that I actually have? So I apologize for the interruption. My daughter was playing outside and needed something from me, so I had to pause it, but I'm back now. So, like I mentioned on episode 1, this is going to be a raw, a real, and unedited podcast because I'm a busy mom, right? And I want other moms to know that it's okay to have a messy life and a chaotic life, but you got to be the one to be able to navigate through it. You got to be somebody who can just take the different shots that life gives you and continue pushing forward and moving forward, right? So anyhow, the homeless in Southern California, and maybe you're familiar with other areas where there's homeless people that are truly doing without. It's another level of poverty, right? It's another level of lack. It's another level of limitation. And sometimes we just need those reminders. We need the reminders of, hey, we are actually doing all right. We are actually doing well. Maybe some of us are actually doing really well. We're just getting caught up in our own mind, in our own thinking of that we're limited and we're stressed over our issues, whether they be financial or otherwise. Sometimes we just need a reminder and we need a perception and a perspective shift to remember, oh, wait, you know what? It really isn't that bad. Because how often have you ever had something happen in your life where, maybe you were stressed out about something, but then something else happened to put it into perspective? Like maybe you were really stressed out about, for example, if you and your spouse are having problems, right? And you're arguing and he really made you mad or something like that. And then like one of your best friends calls you and says, hey, did you hear about so and so? Their husband just died. And then boom, in that moment, you immediately forget about the problem that you had, right? And you maybe even realize in that moment, like, wow, how I was taking my spouse for granted. Yeah, I was annoyed. Yeah, maybe I was validated in having an annoyance or having an issue, or maybe we had an argument and whatever. But at the end of the day, what is really truly important? What is really truly true? Right? So sometimes we need those reminders. Or sometimes, if you have children, maybe you can relate, you're so like the day is just so going so crazy. Your head might feel like it's going to explode, right? And the kids are just yelling and fighting all day or something like that. And then you see a commercial of one of those St. Jude commercials where the mother is sitting at the bedside of her child fighting for their life, fighting cancer, fighting for their life. And you're put in immediately in that moment, you put things into perspective, like, wow, yeah, things are crazy. Yeah, my kids are crazy. Yeah, life might be chaotic and crazy, but wow, it could be much worse. Wow, there's some people that are struggling way more than me. Wow, there are situations, way worse situations that I could be in right now, and I'm not. And that little thing right there, that little place that you can tap into is the place where you have to be, and you have to cultivate the ability to tap into that place in an instant and in any moment. And it's a tool that I've developed. Now, right now, wherever are at in your life, I know for a fact you have been in a worse situation in the past. And what I want you to do is take a moment now, or you can take a moment after this podcast. I'm going to give you the 3 steps, and maybe you can contemplate it for the rest of the day. But I want you to think about in the different areas of life that you want to improve. And there's nothing wrong with improving, right? We're designed to be creatures who are ever expanding, right? Ever expanding, conscious cosmic beings. So there's nothing wrong with expansion, but in order to expand, we have to be clear on what the truth really is. So I know for a fact that in the past you've been in a far worse place, right? Whether it's financially, whether it's in your health, whether it's with your children, or just whatever it is. You've probably been in a harder spot in your past. Or maybe you know someone who's in a harder spot than you're in, right? And now this does not take away from the experience that you're having. You're like, but I'm going through this and it is difficult. Of course it is. But if you want to get through that and get past that and get over it, Einstein said that we cannot solve a problem cannot be solved at the same level of consciousness that it was created. In order to solve our problems and our challenges and to really rise above and move forward in life, we have to rise above and move, and we have to rise above the problems and the challenges that we are having in order to move forward. And what does rise above? What does that mean? That means bring our consciousness up, bring our awareness up to another level. Start seeing things from a more spiritual perspective and a more spiritual level, to where we can just see the problem for what it is, understand that it's a challenge, understand that, you know what, maybe even there's something that I can learn from this. Maybe there's even a way that I can grow through this thing that I'm dealing with, this challenge that I'm having, and I can take a benefit away from it as well. So being able to shift your perspective in the moment, just so that energetically within yourself, you can retune yourself back into abundance. I'll tell you what that's going to do. Let me take a quick drink of water right here. Hold on. What you're going to do is, instead of going into the spiral, because if you're stressed out and you're having whatever problems that you're dealing with, we as human beings, we get into these habit patterns within our body and within our brain and within our mind to go in downward spirals. Have you ever had a day where you got up first thing in the day, maybe you go make your coffee and it ends up spilling, right? And you're like half asleep and you're like, oh, and then you're wiping it up, and then you like go to bring the coffee to the table or wherever you're going, and then maybe you step on a Lego and you're like, oh my gosh, like, because it hurts so bad. And then there's just like a thing after thing after thing that just kind of like tips you into the spiral, and then that day ends up being a day where you spiraled down, and it was just like thing after thing after thing kept happening to put you in that negative, irritated, just mood of like, oh my gosh, I'm done with this day, right? Those are spirals, and those are like mental patterns and habits that we get. Literally, our body gets addicted to those cycles, and it starts to look for those. It starts to look for, where can I get irritated? Where can I get upset? Where can I get annoyed? Where can I get angry? Because I'm so used to having, it's like our body gets high off of the different chemical reactions that happens in our body when we experience those circumstances. So the minute that you put yourself in a perspective and you say, okay, this is happening right now, but you know what? A couple years ago, we went through X, Y, and Z, and you know what? We got through that. Everything was fine. We were stronger after. Just in the immediate moment, if you can shift your perspective to see that, it could be worse and it's not, and you are grateful that it's not, and you're grateful that you are not in a worse place. You're grateful that and then take it a step farther, right? So that's That's like the first thing, right? So we talked about thoughts, we talked about shifting your perspective, and then the next step forward would be I'm going to remove my attention from this. If especially if it's something that you can't solve in the moment, because there's so many times, I don't know why it is, our brain just thinks like if I just stare at this bill that I can't pay right now, if I just stare at the bill, maybe an idea will come to me on how I can pay it or something like that. I don't know. It just seems like I know for me in the past, I felt like irresponsible if I wasn't stressed out over certain issues. I would feel irresponsible. I'd be like, "No, what are you over there laughing for? You have a problem over here that you need to worry about. Like, go over there and stress about that problem right now." Like, I literally had a voice in my head telling me things like that. And I used to feel like that. But then I realized that the only way that we can dissolve our problems, or the only way that we can shift above and out of the problem, is to remove your attention from it. Remove your conscious attention from it. Now, this doesn't mean that you pretend like it's not there completely and you be totally irresponsible and then like your lights get shut off or something like that, right? But what it means is your conscious attention needs to be more on what you do want than on what you don't want. So for an example, if you have like a utility bill or something like that and it's like huge and you're not really sure how you're going to be able to pay it on time or something like that, right? Maybe you're working a job that you don't like, or whatever the situation is, you have this bill, you're not going to be able to pay it in the moment, and you're not really sure what the heck you're going to do. Instead of sitting there and stressing over it and saying, how am I going to do this, oh my gosh, and then just being so stressed out over that bill that you're not sure if you're going to be able to pay, set it aside, right? And then choose to place your attention on some other area of life that you are grateful for, some other thing that's going good, some other thing that's great, right? Find the things that you can be grateful for, find the things that you can put your attention on that are abundant, right? And I'm talking about the simplest of things, right? The simplest, weirdest, dumbest thing that you wouldn't even, that you're probably taking for granted right now. Like, do you have a stack of toilet paper in your closet that you got 20 rolls over there and you're not even worried about running out of toilet paper right now? So you have an abundance of toilet paper. Put your attention on that pile of toilet paper. And I'm not even joking, because this is what you do, right? Put the attention on that and be like, you know what? I am grateful for that, because it would be a lot worse if I was about to get this bill cut off right over here and we're about to run out of toilet paper. That would be even worse, right? So it sounds funny, right? But that's like the simplest little steps that you can do. Start scanning your environment, looking for the different ways that you actually do already have abundance. Go look, if you're somebody who has, maybe you have a little stockpile of food in your pantry or whatever, and you know that your family would be good for several weeks. If the grid went down or something like that, go open the door and go look at that pantry and express gratitude within yourself and appreciation, and pay attention to that abundance. Another great way is to go outside. Get out of your house, go outside, go for a walk in nature, and just observe how abundant nature is, right? There's not a lack of things in nature to appreciate, right? There's always some birds, there's always trees with tons of branches, and maybe there's leaves all over the ground, or there's so many different weeds, or there's so many different types of plants. Like, notice what's growing naturally in your environment, in your outer environment, in nature, abundantly, and just appreciate that. And it sounds weird, right? It might sound really strange, and you're like, you know what? How is doing that going to help me pay that bill? I just don't understand it. Here's what happens, right? And then I'll summarize. I'll give you the 3 steps and we'll end this episode. So, what we're doing when we use these little tools and these little hacks is we're literally changing the energy and the frequency within ourself. And without going into all the scientific jargon and all of that kind of stuff, I hope that you can just take it for face value and trust that this is the way that it works. And I've experienced it in my own life, and I know that you will experience it in your own life if you have an open mind and put it to the test, right? So what we're doing with each and every one of these instances, that we just shift away from the worry and we shift into an attitude of abundance and recognizing abundance and identifying abundance, what's going to happen is we change our energetic frequency so that we make ourselves available and we become an energetic match for the solution you're looking for, right? So even though, you're out in nature, and the most miraculous thing that could happen when you're walking outside in nature is that maybe you found the money that you needed for the bill, right? That would be like the most miraculous, extravagant thing that can happen, right? Now, I don't know what the odds are of that happening. I wouldn't say that that's impossible. So that could be the most miraculous thing that can happen, right? But the thing that definitely will happen no matter what is that you are going to raise your vibrational frequency higher to the level above the problem. You have to get yourself above and out of that frequency of having that issue of not being able to XYZ, whatever that issue is that you're having, right? So it's all about rising above. It's all about getting above the frequency of the problem and the issue and the challenge at hand, because that's where the solutions are. There's so many solutions to coming up with money, or to coming up with whatever it is that you're looking for, to shifting the situation, the circumstance, the environment, whatever it is that you want to solve. But they'll only be found, those solutions will only be found, the resources will only be found if we lift ourselves up and out of it, right? So these are all little tools and hacks to do that. And that's all that these different things that you do: meditation, journaling, um, making a vision board, just all these different things that you may have heard of, or maybe you even tried yourself if you've been into manifestation for some level of time, or law of attraction, or any of this stuff. All of those things are meant to calibrate you. You are the ultimate tool. You are the ultimate technology. Your consciousness is the ultimate technology that can make anything happen. Anything happen if you believe it and if you actually apply the principles to your life, right? So if you have a pen or a paper, let's have you write this down, right? Because this is going to be the applicable part of the podcast that you can go out and just start applying this right away. So we already kind of talked about number one. So place your attention on abundance, whether it's around you in your environment. Also, you can start noticing abundance in the lives of others. If you're on social media and you're scrolling through and you see somebody just moved into a new house, or they just got a new car, or they're blessed in some way, in with abundance in some way, instead of being like the masses and most people, the average person, what happens when they see that? They think, oh, why can't that be happening for me? Or, oh, who is she to, why does she get that and I don't? Or, oh, how is she better? Like, how, we get these little feelings of, I don't know if it's like jealousy or envy or just like frustration of like, why isn't that happening to me? Right. But we have to stop thinking like that and learn to appreciate the abundance and the prosperity and the blessings in the lives of others as if they're a sign, because they're a sign of what's possible and what's on its way to you if you make yourself receptive to it. But if you're hating on it, envying it, being jealous of it, looking at it as if like, oh, why this or why that or why not me, instead of, oh, wow. Like when I see people who are blessed or experiencing success these days, I didn't used to be like this in the past when I was first learning these principles, because it was difficult. I was just raised to be like that, right? But these days I'm like, wow, that's amazing. And you know what? I can't wait to experience that for myself. And the fact that I'm even seeing that happen to someone else not only means that it's possible for me, but it means that it's on the way for me now if I choose that reality and that potential in my life. And I get really encouraged and I get really inspired, as if like, wow, the universe is showing me what's possible for me. The universe is showing me like, hey, here's what's happening over here. You want to participate in some of that? And I'm like, yes or no, either way. You know what I mean? So when you look at it that way, you're making yourself more receptive. So that's the second. Notice abundance in the lives of others and celebrate the abundance in the lives of others. And then number three is create an anchor in your own environment. So we each have these little quirky things, right, that make us feel a certain way. And feeling is truly the secret, because what is feeling? Feeling is vibration. Feeling is frequency. So the more that you can focus on ways to make yourself feel good and feel happy and joyful and inspired and positive and whatever other word that you want to throw in there, the more that you can make that a priority for yourself and know it's not selfish to make yourself feel good. It's not selfish to want to be joyful. It's not selfish to want to be happy. And it's not selfish to want to be happy all the time either. And it's not selfish to want to make that and make your specific happiness a priority in your life. And the reason is because when you make yourself happier, you're raising your vibration. When you make yourself more inspired, you're raising your vibration. So, what is it for you? Is it a nice, beautiful candle? Can you go spend $20 on a candle, $10 on a candle, or whatever it is? Might not even be candles for you. It might be something else. It might be a nice tapestry or a painting or a little sign or something. Think of something that you can do. And if it's a few different things, set yourself up for inspiration. Set yourself up for success so that way you can create little things in your environment that make you a little more inspired, a little happier, a little more joyful, makes you laugh a little bit. And then that's going to be your anchor for your abundance. Each time you look at that thing, each time you go and light that candle or you have it burning or you see it burning, you're reminded of, oh, that's my anchor of I'm an abundant person. I'm choosing abundance. I'm choosing to tap into the reality that I am already in abundance. Abundance is already in me. It's already available to me. And all I have to do is focus and be mentally um, disciplined enough to start experiencing it. I'm not going to focus on lack anymore. I'm going to focus on abundance. And that thing that you place into your environment is going to be an anchor to hold you there and bring you and pull you back there when you start to get off the path, right? So I hope this was helpful for you. I know some of these things sound kind of weird, but I'm telling you right now, nothing that I share on this podcast isn't something that I have not applied to my own life and seen results from it. I've seen some amazing, crazy, weird, strange, and miraculous results from implementing these principles and from implementing some of these tests and these experiments. And I wouldn't be sharing it here if it didn't make an impact on my life. So I hope that it makes an impact on your life and the lives of your family as well. So if you liked this episode, make sure that you're subscribed. Feel free to share it with a friend, and I will see you in the next one.